It was supposed to be harmless. A Friday night sleepover in a quiet cul-de-sac. 3 teenage girls. Pizza. Movies. Gossip. The kind of night parents secretly like because they know exactly where their kids are. At 7:13 p.m., group texts flew back and forth. I'm bringing snacks. Don't start the movie without me. My mom says I have to be home by 10. Oh well, she'll forget. By 9 p.m., the girls were in the Miller family's living room in Maple Glen, Ohio, blankets on the floor, nail polish out, horror movie on the TV. Parents upstairs. The dog is snoring on the couch. Nothing about that night felt dangerous. At 7:02 the next morning, Mrs. Miller padded downstairs in slippers, ready to start coffee and wake the girls for breakfast. There were only 2 sleeping bags on the floor. 2 girls. The third, 15-year-old Kaylee Rhodes, was gone. Her phone was still charging on the kitchen counter. Her shoes were lined up neatly by the front door. The back door was locked from the inside. There was no note, no sound in the night. No one had seen her leave. Within hours, police were searching the neighborhood. By afternoon, Kaylee's school photo was on every local newscast. The last place anyone saw her alive was on a living room floor between 2 friends, whispering about crushes and midterms. Somewhere between midnight and dawn, a normal American sleepover turned into a crime scene. This is the story of the teen sleepover that turned into a cold case. Maple Glen looked like the kind of place where nothing bad ever happens. Tree-lined streets, matching mailboxes, minivans in every driveway. A neighborhood watch group is more worried about raccoons in the trash than strangers in the dark. The Miller house sat on a bend of Sycamore Court, a 2-story colonial with a porch swing and a basketball hoop over the garage. Inside lived Tom and Lisa Miller, both in their 40s. Their daughter, Sophie, age 15. Their son, Evan, 10. The Rhodes family lived 3 streets over in a smaller, older house. Kaylee wasn't the loudest girl in the room, but her friends described her the same way over and over. Responsible. Funny when she warmed up. The one who remembered everyone's birthday. On October 9th, she'd had an ordinary day. School, volleyball practice, homework at the kitchen table. At 5:30 p.m., she asked her mom, Denise, if she could sleep over at Sophie's. Denise hesitated. There was a math test on Monday, and Kaylee had been stressed. But it was a 3-day weekend. She agreed on one condition. Text me when you get there, and keep your phone on. No disappearing. Kaylee rolled her eyes but smiled. She left the house at 6:12 p.m., backpack over one shoulder, sleeping bag under her arm. A neighbor's doorbell camera caught her walking past, hood up against the October chill, glancing down at her phone. That was the last time anyone outside the Miller house was sure they saw her. Inside the Miller home, everything was loud and normal. The girls, Sophie Miller, Kaylee Rhodes, and Jenna Carlson, took over the living room. Tom Miller ordered pizzas. Lisa Miller set out sodas and reminded them, no boys, no leaving the house. And if you're going to scream at the movie, warn us first. They laughed, promised, and queued up a horror film they'd seen a dozen times. Text messages from that night show normal, teenage chaos. Kaylee is texting a classmate about homework. Jenna is sending memes to a group chat. Sophie posted a blurry selfie of the 3 of them with the caption, Sleepover Squad Skull Pizza. At 9:47 p.m., Kaylee texted her mom, Here, all good. Denise replied with a heart. Upstairs, the Millers watched a crime drama with the volume low. They could hear occasional bursts of laughter, the dog barking at nothing, the microwave door slamming. Around 11:30 p.m., Lisa peeked over the railing. The girls were under blankets, the TV now showing some reality show, half-watched. Everything looked fine. At midnight, she texted Sophie, Phone's off by 12:30. Don't stay up all night. Sophie replied with an eye roll emoji. Phone records show Jenna's phone activity has slowed after 12:15 a.m. Sophie's last active at 12:42 a.m. Kaylee's last activity at 12:38 a.m. A short, unsent draft message that simply read, Do you ever get that feeling someone's? Then nothing. The draft autosaved. Kaylee never hit send. At 7:02 a.m., Lisa came downstairs. The TV was off. Empty soda cans littered the coffee table. The dog nosed around an empty pizza box. Two girls lay asleep in sleeping bags, Sophie and Jenna. Kaylee's sleeping bag was unzipped and empty. Lisa assumed she was in the bathroom. She started the coffee and called out, "Girls, time to get up. Church in an hour." No answer. She checked the bathroom. Empty. She checked the kitchen. Empty. She looked again at the living room and noticed something that hadn't registered at first. Kaylee's pillow was on the floor near the couch, as if she'd slid out of the sleeping bag. Her hoodie was draped over the armrest. Her socks were by the coffee table. Her shoes were still by the front door. Her phone was on the counter, plugged into a charger. Lisa unplugged it, expecting the screen to light up with notifications. Nothing. No overnight calls. No texts after 12:38 a.m. She woke Sophie and Jenna. They were confused, groggy. Maybe she went home? Sophie suggested. But Denise's car was not in the driveway outside. A quick call to Kaylee's mom turned the uneasy feeling into panic. "She's not here," Denise said, instantly alert. She never came home. Within an hour, 2 patrol cars were parked in front of the Miller house. By noon, Sycamore Court was swarming with law enforcement. The phrase every parent dreads, "Your daughter is missing," had entered the Rhodes family's life. Investigators started with the basics. The working theory in those early hours was simple. A teenager had slipped out without permission, maybe to meet someone, maybe on a dare, maybe because she was upset. They asked the same questions they always asked. Had Kaylee been depressed? Had she talked about running away? Was there a boyfriend no one knew about? Denise shook her head to all of it. "She leaves a note if she goes to the corner store," she said. "She doesn't just disappear." Officers canvassed the neighborhood. No one had seen Kaylee walking outside. No one had heard raised voices, car doors, or a struggle. Doorbell cameras captured everything from passing raccoons to late-night Amazon deliveries, but not Kaylee. Inside the house, detectives treated the living room like a crime scene. They dusted for prints on the doors and windows. They collected Kaylee's phone, pillow, and hoodie. They photographed the arrangement of the sleeping bags and scattered junk food. Nothing was obviously out of place. The back door was locked. Its deadbolt could only be turned from the inside. The windows on the ground floor were latched. The sliding glass door to the deck had its security bar in place. Police quietly tested the locks. All held firm. If Kaylee had left on her own, she would have had to unlock a door, walk out, and close it again without anyone hearing. If someone took her, they had to know how to get in and out without leaving a trace. As word spread, the focus shifted to the only 2 people known to have been with Kaylee that night while adults slept: Sophie and Jenna. They were interviewed separately. Their stories matched mostly. Both described watching a horror movie, playing a game on Jenna's phone, taking turns painting each other's nails. They said the lights were out by around 12:30 a.m. They each remembered Kaylee saying something like, "I'm so tired. I'm going to pass out." They laughed, teased her, and eventually drifted off to sleep. Neither claimed to have heard anything strange in the night. The differences emerged in the details. Sophie remembered Kaylee getting up at least once to get water. Jenna didn't. Jenna remembered a car engine revving outside sometime around 2 a.m. Sophie thought that might have just been her brother's video game earlier in the evening. Detectives pressed gently. Had Kaylee been texting someone under the blankets? Had she said anything about sneaking out? Both girls insisted no. Phone records backed them up. No outgoing calls or texts after 12:38 a.m. But one detail stood out. Jenna said that, as they were falling asleep, Kaylee asked a strange question. "Have you ever felt like someone was watching the house?" Jenna shrugged it off as sleepover spookies. Sophie said she didn't remember that part at all. The question lingered in the detective's notes. Who or what had Kaylee felt watching the house? Within days, Maple Glen's quiet streets were plastered with missing person flyers. A tip line lit up. Most calls went nowhere. One didn't, A neighbor 3 houses down reported seeing a dark sedan idling near the intersection of Sycamore Court and Maple Avenue around 1 a.m. the night of the sleepover. He glanced out his upstairs window because his dog was barking. The car's headlights were off. He assumed it was a rideshare waiting for someone. Later, when he heard about Kaylee, the memory nagged at him. Doorbell camera footage from a house at the corner partially confirmed his account. At 1:06 a.m., the grainy video showed a dark vehicle stopped at the curb for several minutes before slowly pulling away. The plate wasn't legible. Investigators canvassed further and found a gas station half a mile away with cameras facing the road. At 12:52 a.m., the same type of sedan, possibly the same car, drove past. Detectives pulled traffic cam footage from the nearest intersection. Again, the image quality was limited, but they now had a rough make and model. They checked DMV records for local owners. The list was long, too long. Still, one name jumped out. Mark Ellis, a 32-year-old former delivery driver who'd recently moved back in with his parents, 2 streets over from the Millers. Ellis had a minor record for trespassing and a dismissed stalking charge filed by an ex-girlfriend years earlier. When questioned, he admitted he owned a dark sedan. He sometimes drove at night to clear his head. He'd been out the night Kaylee disappeared, but he denied being near Sycamore Court. His phone records placed him in the general area, but not conclusively on that street. A search of his car revealed nothing obvious. No fibers, no blood, no trace of Kaylee. Neighbors, however, remembered something else. Weeks before the sleepover, Ellis had been seen walking his dog past the Miller house more than once. Always alone, always late, always looking. It wasn't proof, but it was enough to keep his name underlined in red. Sometimes in cases like this, investigators look so hard at the obvious possibilities that they nearly miss the ones next door. Literally. The Miller's next-door neighbor, Mrs. Hargrove, was an older woman who lived alone. She told officers she slept with a sound machine on and heard nothing that night. Her house seemed irrelevant until a detective asked a casual question about whether she'd ever had issues with her doors or windows. She hesitated, then mentioned something odd. 2 weeks before the sleepover, she'd woken up one morning to find her back door standing open. Nothing was stolen. Nothing was broken. She blamed herself for forgetting to lock it and tried not to think about it. Detectives checked her yard. A narrow gap between the Hargrove fence and the Miller fence led to a strip of ground hidden from street view. Trampled grass suggested it was used as a cut-through path by kids, or anyone who didn't want to be seen. If someone had been watching the Miller house, they could have parked on the street behind, cut through Mrs. Hargrove's yard, approached the Miller's back windows unseen. No cameras were facing that direction. In the dirt near the fence, crime scene techs found the faint imprint of a shoe, too degraded to match a brand, but roughly adult-sized. It was impossible to date, but it strengthened a growing suspicion. If Kaylee hadn't left the house on her own, someone might have come in, quietly, while 3 girls slept on the floor. As weeks turned into months, Maple Glen changed. The easy trust between neighbors eroded. Every man with a dark sedan, every quiet loner, every teen boy with a hoodie and headphones became a potential suspect in whispered conversations. Some residents blamed the Millers. Why weren't there locks on the bedroom doors? Why let them sleep downstairs? Others blamed the Rhodes family for overreacting, insisting Kaylee had run away. Conspiracy threads online speculated that one of the parents knew more than they were saying. Jenna or Sophie was hiding a secret. Kaylee had been planning to disappear all along. None of it lined up with the evidence. Denise grew thinner, brittle. She kept Kaylee's room exactly as it was the night of the sleepover. Every night before bed, she opened the door and stood there, as if sheer willpower could drag her daughter back into existence. Tom Miller went quieter. Lisa stopped hosting neighborhood barbecues. Sycamore Court, once a place of kids on bikes and chalk drawings on sidewalks, felt like a stage for something unfinished and wrong. The case cooled. Leads dried up. Mark Ellis moved away. Jenna's family relocated after rumors at school became unbearable. Sophie stayed, carrying the weight of having been asleep 3 feet from a girl who vanished. 10 years later, The file landed on the desk of a young detective in the county's newly formed cold case unit. She'd grown up in the next town over. She remembered the flyers. She remembered being told as a child never to go to sleepovers in houses without alarms. Now, she had access to better tools, enhanced video processing, advanced DNA techniques, cell tower mapping software. She re-examined the gas station and traffic camera footage. This time, the software cleared some of the grain. Still couldn't give a license plate, but it confirmed something else. The dark sedan that idled on the corner at 1:06 a.m. had an aftermarket bumper sticker, a distinctive white oval with black letters. A search through old traffic citations and body cam footage eventually turned up a clear image. The same sticker, the same car, registered to a man who had since been arrested in another state for attempted abduction. Not Mark Ellis, someone else altogether. At the time of Kaylee's disappearance, he'd been living one town over, working night shifts. His route to work took him past Maple Glen. He was now in prison. In interviews with investigators, he denied any involvement in Kaylee's case. He insisted the night of the sleepover was just another drive. No physical evidence tied him directly to the Miller house. But the overlap between his known behavior and the Maple Glen timeline was chilling. The cold case detective couldn't close the file, but she could say something the original investigators couldn't. This was not random. Whoever took Kaylee had either watched that house or driven those streets long enough to recognize an opportunity when they saw it. Today, the phrase teen sleepover still sounds innocent. Pizza, movies, laughing until the parents snap and tell everyone to go to sleep. But in Maple Glen, it carries another meaning. For the kids who grew up there, Kaylee's disappearance is the line that divides before and after. Before, they argued with their parents about curfews. After, their parents stood in doorways at night and checked twice that the windows were locked. The Miller house has new carpeting, a different couch, and a TV that's been replaced twice. But that living room is still, in the minds of many, frozen in time. 3 sleeping bags. A dog at the foot of the couch. 2 girls are still breathing. 1 space on the floor that might as well be outlined in tape. For true crime viewers, it's easy to categorize stories. Domestic cases, stranger abductions, serial offenders. The teen sleepover case sits in a more unsettling place, because it reminds us that danger doesn't always knock. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it watches through gaps in fences and slivers between curtains. Sometimes it memorizes routines. The nights kids sleep in the living room, the parents who go to bed earlier than usual, the cul-de-sacs with no cameras. Kaylee Rhodes didn't walk into a dark alley or meet someone from the internet at a bus stop. She lay down on the living room floor between 2 friends in a house with people upstairs who loved her. And still, someone found a way to take her. Until a confession, a match, a new piece of evidence, or a miracle emerges, hers remains a cold case. A question mark in the middle of a perfectly ordinary night. For parents, it's a story that keeps them peeking down the stairs one more time before bed. For the people of Maple Glen, it's a reminder that no town is too quiet to hold a secret. And for the rest of us, it's one more reason to look twice at the places we assume are safe. Because sometimes, the scariest stories don't start on lonely highways or abandoned buildings. They start on a carpeted living room floor, under a blanket, at a teen sleepover that was supposed to end with pancakes in the morning. And as always, subscribe and follow Enter the Crime for more intriguing stories.